all these people that talk about Watts, they say how dirty it is, how filthy it is, how much they want to leave. All my friends don't want to live here. Hate to say that they live in Watts. I think that's silly. They do live in Watts. Sure, everybody wants to get out. I don't. I think I want to stay here. But I don't want to live like I'm living right now. But I think that if Watts is ever going to be anything more than it is, it's going to take people who will stay here and build it up. After all, if everybody just starts moving out, those that can't move just stay here, live like their mothers and fathers lived. It's not going to do any good.
HNG TV, Channel 1.
If you haven't did so yet, check out part 1 and OG's beginning, original Bacc Street Crips. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, no negative comments in the comment section. If I see any negativity, you will be blocked or muted. Now check out part 2 with OG Skull and OG's beginning. HNG TV, check this out.
All right, tell us what city you from.
I'm from Watts, California. It's a suburb in Los Angeles, the east side. I was born and raised in Watts.
What year was you born?
I was born in 1964.
At that time in the 70s.
And man, it was beautiful, man. I talked to somebody recently about that I feel the 70s was the best years. You know, because I don't know much about the 60s, even though I was born in the 60s, but I grew up as a young kid on up into my middle age and then older years in the 70s and then the 80s. And we'll go about the 80s in a minute, but in the 70s, it was a whole different animal because the 70s is a kickoff of a lot of what we doing now. But you gotta understand the Crips, we a branch off from the Panthers Party. And the reason I say that, the Panther Party had a lot more organization. So when you get guys like Raymond Washington, Tookie and them was radical dudes that didn't want to be up under a certain restraint of rules and regulations like they had for the Panthers. So even though we was a revolutionary party, we was more about our community and the blackness, and we refused to let people come in our community and do anything without going through us. But I was gonna go back a little even before that, before how I got in. But you know, when I got in, some of the major dudes that started cripping, which was more fluently in Compton and the east side, which the west side came a little later, but the east side and Compton and Watts, when I started, a lot of these main dudes that started it were still around. For instance, like I grew up on 116th and San Pedro, and right down the street you had guys like guys that was from 118th, which was Block Crips. Before they was coastal, they was Block Crips. One of my cousins was one of the main dudes that was from Block Crips, and when I was little, he was one of my idols, but he was on some gangster. And I remember we went up to Antis Park one day to swim, and a dude came up to me, a big old dude, and I guess he was a park boy, a big old dude, and he was sweating me about my towel, you know what I'm saying, my clothes. And my cousin stepped up, that was from Block, that mate, and told me, step back, little cuz, step behind me. And that was all, you know what I'm saying? I was like, damn, you know what I'm saying? And from that point on, you know what I'm saying? So I remember when I was little, I was standing in my yard, had to be about 73 or 74. I was standing in my front yard, and I just heard like a bunch of commotion, like, you know, I look up, damn, like, is a bird, a plane, whatever. People was running, cars was throwing on brakes and this. I'm looking around like, damn, I'm in my front yard. And then I just seen a group of dudes coming from that way, like going towards Imperial, coming from 118. And you got dudes, like, I'm talking about like all the G's, Raymond Watts, all these dudes was with these dudes, you know what I'm saying? And they was coming from down from where the coast is now. And they was walking in the middle of the street and the cars didn't even want to go that way no more. Police didn't come over there. And I'm looking, and each and every dude, I'm watching, everybody had their distinct walk. Everybody had their own distinct way of, like, you know what I'm saying? You had big dudes, little dudes. You had dudes that had pit bulls. You had dudes that was carrying radios, bumping the oldies. You know what I'm saying? And everybody like mobbing. Yeah, I seen dudes with chains wrapped around their hands. You know what I'm saying? Dudes with bats.
What was the reason?
They was bailing. And that was the day they were bailing, man. And this was when Crippin' was coming. And if you wasn't with this, it wasn't no stopping it. If you wasn't with it, you was against it, and that's the way they moved. And I was looking like, you know, and people was running, get in the house, look, they coming, and I'm looking like, damn, who the fuck? And you know what I'm saying, one of the dudes like looked at me, man, and like to the side, and he like this, and he like gave me a nod, like, yeah. And I knew then. I might as well went to the liquor store and pointed out a blue rag and got some low, because I knew then, even though I didn't, because I was a child, but I knew then what I wanted to be when I grew up. You can ask a motherfucker like, man, what you want to be when you grow up? Somebody gonna say, I want to be the president. I want to be a fireman. I want to be the policeman. Just like Snoop said, I want to be a motherfucking gangbanger.
What year was this?
I'm gonna say 74.
74. Also, another thing, at that time when you saw their presence, Crippin' presence, and when you was growing up, was there still some of the old Watts gangs that still was around at that time?
Yeah, at this time, a lot of the gangs that started forming, you know, their own street cliques. Like, probably at this time, and I wouldn't know because I wasn't in yet, but I'm gonna say like maybe it was still the east side. All this still east side, it's still up under Raymond Washington. And then like when you got there, that's why a lot of these hoods that way in Compton is called Bacc Crips, because once you got that way, it's starting to be blocked, and that was like the Compton sets. But they was all party, you know, you got the east side and you go right into Compton. You go.
Was Watts still around, the gang Watts?
Oh, well, you know, Watts is kind of like a community, you know, and you still had the projects. They've been there forever. You know, the projects was there when the migration came, and majority of all of us that was black and came from the South. And they came to these projects. And I remember we came to the projects. I was a baby. But I remember my mother calling my grandmother back in Louisiana and bragging about having a bathroom in the house and hot running water. And they thought the projects was like Beverly Hills or something from where they was coming from in the 60s. And they probably came before that. My parents probably came in the 50s or 60s because I was born here, you know what I'm saying? So they was calling them like, Mama, you wouldn't believe it. We got our own yard. We got green grass, and you know.
The project was originally built for what?
Well, the projects was built. I want to say they built the projects for the migration, and I'm not gonna say that because I don't really know. But I'm gonna say because Peanut probably would know way more than me. But I would say the people that was coming, that's where they was hitting first. They was hitting the project. There's very few people came and leapfrogged straight to the west side, or straight to Venice, or straight to, you know what I'm saying, the situations out there, you know, because that was all white and rich people. It was still white people in Compton and Watts and the east side, still white people. So you could imagine cross the freeway and getting down toward La Brea, them was probably movie stars and rich people still.
When your family moved over here, what type of employment that they received, and what type of employment blacks in the community they worked at?
Well, my dad, and I'm glad you asked that question because this is one of the things that I often show and share. I remember Barkley on TV said one time about he ain't a role model. The parents should be the role model to their kids. But you got to understand, at that time, people wasn't trying to be a role model. We were trying too busy to make it. My dad was a janitor. I stayed next door to a pimp. So when you get to talking about who a child will pick to be a role model, I was looking at a pimp like this. Because when I got ready to start banging, this dude had a 78 Brougham off the lot. He had jewelry, had a long perm. He'd come outside with a leopard skin motherfucking robe. My pops was sleep in the truck drunk. But at the time, I thought this guy, I'm like, wow, you know, who have a 78 Brougham brand new off the floor with A-wires and A-wires and Vobes on them in 77. And you want me to look at my dad who got a truck that go to work every day. But years later, I turned around and thought that's the role model all the time, my father. Whether he was a janitor or whatever he was, what he did was took care of his family. See, because you got to understand, I was different from a lot of guys. I had a two-parent family, my mom and dad. I got no step brothers and side brothers and brothers around the corner. I got there's 6 of us, my 5 brothers and sisters. I got 2 sisters and 4 brothers. No, 3 brothers, because there's 6 of us. We all by the same mother and father. The role model of my father was going to work, coming home every day and putting food on the table, which I couldn't see it because all I could see was the gold chains. And right now today, the kids still following the same thing, but we got no other choice because you grow up poor, you're going to follow the money.